And I think, in many ways, it helps us to understand why it's so important there is a DOI. Because when you've got people in positions of power, others shy away from speaking up or drawing attention to themselves or inviting, risk, for their career, because it's just sometimes easier to look the other way. How much does that tell us about why DOI is important, and why do you think DOI is so essential to the integrity of this city?
Most of our work is focused on cases, but we also have kind of an education and outreach component to try to convince city workers and contractors and members of the public that they should come forward. And I think one of the best ways to convince people that they should come forward is to take their complaints seriously, to both in fact and in perception pursue those cases with independence and vigor, to let people see the work that we're doing and not get used to deference, to try to create a culture where people see that it's more important to do right than to be right.
So you've got an ample but limited, because it's finite, budget. How do you go about setting priorities for the broad-ranging work that DOI does?
For me, it's been a priority to try to shift money and resources to casework, that our spending on personnel and equipment and everything is focused on our casework. And you can waste a lot of time and resources chasing a hypothetical big case. And meanwhile, you are missing all that could be made of cases that seem small at the beginning. But those cases are really important to me because they mostly represent the primary way that most citizens experience city government. So
you benefit from the great work that so many others have done before you in making city government as clean as possible and building public faith in government. How fleeting could that be? And are norms enough?
Even very enduring, what we thought of as very enduring norms like the independence of DOJ or, for DOI, like the presumption that city agencies will comply with our requests and be fully cooperative, that those things endure only because if you have people in power who believe in them. And that, I think it has prompted a lot of reflection in our national conversation, I think in the city too, about whether norms are enough. And I think there are institutional things you can do to ensure a greater degree of independence. One thing that's quite difficult is that the more rules and oversight you put in place over prosecutors and investigators, in some ways, the harder it is for them to be independent.
At the same time that you aspire to independence, there's also probably some measure of democratic accountability in linking an investigator to a publicly chosen elected official like the mayor.
Right. Well, it is very tricky because, and I think maybe it goes back to our earlier thing of like, a lot is riding on who are the people exercising that power, people who believe in the norms of discretion, of restraint, because it is true, and I think rightly true, that investigators, as we are oversight agencies, prosecutors, have tremendous power, and you can, in the wrong hands, you can use that power to destroy people's lives indiscriminately, to really wreak a lot of havoc. But the more outside control there is, the more potential for people who have political agendas, who are not independent, which I think is democracy, right? I mean, it's appropriate for people in the city council to have political agendas because they're elected officials and they are responsive to their constituents. But to try to keep some distance, to keep investigators, prosecutors, oversight officials independent from political concerns, but in some way exercising a degree of self-control, policing themselves. So finding a place that is in the middle of those two things is, I think, the sweet spot.
Because you preside over a large agency that watches over everybody else. How do you build an ethical culture within DOI? How do you promote some of the messages that you've been articulating today in terms of, using your power wisely, et cetera.
As the agency head, you have to have personal responsibility for that. Yes, there are all these sort of forces coming from the outside, but we need to ignore those things and think about what do we know, what is the law, what is the right thing to do, and make sure that we are making our decisions first about what is right, just, fair, what's supported by the facts, and then these other factors you manage after you've come to what you think is the right decision.
How do you negotiate the relationships with the other agency heads or City Hall?
To navigate a role where you are in and of something, but also have to be separate, and also where a lot of your role is saying no, calling people out for doing the wrong thing. It is very tricky to navigate that. She said, I really feel that I'm the right person in the right place at the right time, and I'm derived tremendous satisfaction from that. And even when she's trying to navigate this very difficult situation, it's a gift. It's a great thing right now in difficult times to be doing such important work, and to be representing and fighting for principles that I think need good advocates right now. So I'm grateful for that, and it's very inspiring to be here with people who are doing that from all over the world.
Great. Thank you, Margaret Garnett.
Thanks.
Thank you all.